Hello, and welcome back to History You Need. In today's video, we will be taking a look at the second President of the United States, John Adams. Please remember to like, subscribe, and leave any comments or suggestions down below. John Adams was born on October 30th, 1735 in Braintree, Massachusetts. Adams was the eldest of three sons to Deacon John Adams and Susanna Boyston. His father was a farmer and a shoemaker, but the family could trace their lineage all the way back to the first generation of Puritan settlers in New England. Early on, Deacon Adams hoped that his oldest son would pursue a career in the church. In order to pursue this career, John enrolled at Harvard University and graduated in 1755. He then went on to teach grammar school for 3 years in Worcester, Massachusetts. Soon after, John realized that he wanted to pursue a career in law and moved to Boston in order to start his law career. In 1764, he married his wife, Abigail Smith, and they had their first child, Abigail Amelia, in 1765, followed by John Quincy, who would later go on to become president like his father. They would also have 2 more sons named Thomas and Charles. By 1765, Adams' legal career was on the rise, and he became very vocal in his opposition to Parliament's right to tax the American colonies. Adams wrote a dissertation on the canon on feudal law, which justified the opposition to the recently enacted Stamp Act. 2 years later, in 1767, Adams became a leading figure in the fight against the Townshend Acts. Although his own hostility and the hostility around the colonies was growing towards the British at this time, John Adams agreed to defend British soldiers in their trial over the Boston Massacre. His insistence on defending the legal rights of the soldiers made him a bit unpopular at the time, but it also showed he was one of the most principled radicals during the Revolution. As the movement and war for independence grew, the First Continental Congress was convened in 1774, and John Adams was selected to represent the colony of Massachusetts. During his time serving in the Continental Congress, John Adams wrote essays and gave speeches further denouncing the unfair taxation of the colonies and furthering the independence movement. When the Second Continental Congress met in 1775, Adams would contribute greatly. First, he nominated George Washington to be the commander of the Continental Army, and soon after, he helped to select Thomas Jefferson to draft the Declaration of Independence. In 1774, Adams was selected to travel to France in order to help Benjamin Franklin in creating an alliance between France and the colonies. But when he arrived, discussions had already concluded. Adams then returned home to Massachusetts, where he helped to draft the state constitution. Soon after, he was selected by Congress again to return to Paris, this time to help with treaty negotiations to bring the war with Britain to an end. Upon return from France, John Adams found his way onto the ballot of the first presidential election. He ultimately finished second in voting to George Washington and was selected to become vice president. Adams did not appear to enjoy his time as vice president, as he is quoted saying this about the vice presidency: "This is the most insignificant office that ever the invention of man contrived and his imagination conceived." In 1796, after George Washington decided not to pursue a third term, it seemed as though Adams was the perfect successor. Adams won the Electoral College 71-68 against Thomas Jefferson, seeing Adams become president and Thomas Jefferson becoming vice president. Adams' presidency included several significant events, including the XYZ affair, the Aliens and Sedition Acts, and the capital of the United States moving from New York City to Washington, D.C. After the conclusion of his presidency, John Adams returned to his farm in Massachusetts, where he enjoyed a retirement filled with reading and writing, watching his son John Quincy Adams be elected to the presidency, and a long and prolific correspondence with his old friend and rival Thomas Jefferson. These letters involved a plethora of subjects, including the role of religion in history, the emergence of a new American language, and the aging process. Adams eventually died on July 4th, 1826, on the 50th anniversary of Independence Day, within hours of his old friend Thomas Jefferson.